I thought it was just a nightmare until I looked in the mirror the next morning. Wrapped around my neck were 5 coal-black bruises and a fresh, bleeding scratch. Living proof that the long, hairy hand from my sleep paralysis was actually real. Let me cut straight to the chase and tell you exactly what happened to me. This incident occurred very recently, but its roots run terrifyingly deep. Since I was just 6 years old, I've been sharing my existence with a shadow, but never before had I faced something as grotesque and harrowing as what happened that night. I had just gotten engaged, and staying up late talking to my fiancée back home had become our nightly ritual. At the time, I was working for a Chinese steel manufacturing firm, stationed in a remote industrial town. We lived in high-density dorms with bunk beds stacked 2 levels high, and I took the top bunk. That night, the clock had already crossed midnight. I had just finished my call with my fiancée and was settling in to sleep. My eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but I found myself in a strange, thin state of half-sleep. I could sense everything around me, yet I couldn't move a single muscle. That's when something caught my attention. I heard it. Heavy footsteps pacing back and forth on the balcony outside our room. At first, I assumed it was just a coworker returning from a late shift, but moments later, my heart nearly stopped. The room door was wide open. I had locked that door myself. I distinctly remember turning the bolt from inside before climbing into bed. Yet there it was, the door, standing wide open like a gaping mouth. I tried to turn my head to look, but that's when the true horror began. My entire body had turned to stone. I couldn't move a fraction of an inch, not a finger, not a toe, nothing. And through the corner of my eye, I could see it. Standing just beyond the threshold, bathed in the dim, sickly light of the corridor, was a pitch-black figure. It stood motionless like a statue carved from pure darkness, watching, waiting. An eternal silence hung in the air. Then I felt it. From directly behind my neck, a hideous, elongated, hair-covered hand began slowly creeping forward. The fingers were unnaturally long, each one thick with coarse, matted fur. In my paralyzed state, my mind raced desperately for a rational explanation. Maybe it was just a burglar, a flesh and blood thief who had come for my new phone, the one I'd bought just a month ago. I tried with every ounce of willpower to grab my phone and hide it under the blanket. But my body was completely paralyzed. My brain was screaming commands, but my limbs refused to obey. Then that nightmarish hand slithered around my throat like a serpent. With a monstrous, inhuman strength, the entity squeezed my windpipe. I swear to you, I couldn't breathe. My lungs burned. It felt like my eyeballs were about to burst from their sockets. I had absolutely no strength left to fight back. In that unbearable agony, I managed only a strangled groan, a desperate, choked cry for help that barely escaped my crushed throat. And in that exact moment, the crushing weight vanished. The hand was gone. I bolted upright, gasping for air. The paralysis had completely lifted. My first instinct was to check my phone with trembling hands. It was still there, tucked under my pillow. Then, with a mixture of disbelief and raw terror, I looked toward the door. My blood ran cold. The door was locked, bolted from the inside, exactly the way I had left it. I tried to convince myself it was just a nightmare, just my mind playing tricks on me. I grabbed the water bottle beside my pillow and gulped down half of it, then forced myself to lie back down. The rest of the night passed without incident, but the real horror was still waiting for me. The next morning, as I was getting ready for my shift, I followed my usual routine, washed my face with cleanser, and stood in front of the mirror. It was winter, and the air was dry, so I was about to put on some moisturizer. The moment I caught my reflection in the mirror, my blood ran cold. Despite my naturally darker complexion, I could clearly see them. 5 distinct finger marks, black as coal, wrapped around both sides of my throat. The bruising was unmistakable, the exact pattern you'd see if someone had grabbed your neck and squeezed with murderous intent. The skin had turned a sickly blue-purple and was visibly swollen. But the most spine-chilling detail? Where the thumb would have been, there was a long, fresh scratch mark, a wound that was still raw and bleeding. I stood frozen, staring at my reflection. If it was just a dream, how did these bloody scratches and bruises appear on my body in the real world? That meant something. Someone had actually stood at my bedside that night, in that locked room, and tried to squeeze the life out of me. This was no dream. This was a living demon. What happened that suffocating night wasn't an isolated incident. It was the continuation of a curse woven into my life from a distant past. When I was just 6 years old, I was first introduced to this shadow world, to these entities that exist between our realm and something far darker. An unholy connection was formed that day, one I never asked for. This demonic attempt on my life, it wasn't random. There's a dark secret behind it, a horrifying reason that I know all too well. Perhaps it's intertwined with my very existence. My voice might sound unclear today, strained from the cold and the wind, but the memory of that hairy hand pressing down on my throat remains crystal clear, as vivid and alive as if it happened just seconds ago. In every quiet corner of my life, that invisible entity lurks in the shadows, watching, waiting. So, that was the complete story of what happened to me. If something strange has ever happened to you, feel free to share it with us. Who knows? Your story might be the next one we tell. Stay with us. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, and share this video. And keep waiting for our next real horror story. For today, we're signing off. Bye and take care.